right, we have one more day of warmth, and then it's going to cool off.
That's me on the right.
Really looking forward to that cooling off this weekend.
Some of us, depending on where you live, yeah, you can almost get too much of a good thing. You know,
Yes,
that's
indeed.
true. Well, it will cool off a little bit tomorrow, Patty. But outside we go right now to show you what's happening with our weather here. We'll go to Santa Cruz. It's a good stop. You know, Santa Cruz earlier in the week, you may recall, was socked in with the fog virtually all day long. Not the story today. A nice day out there today. Lots of sunshine on the boardwalk, and you'll see some pleasant 70-degree readings there. We expect the high to get up into easily up into the middle 70s by the time all is said and done. And there's our pretty shot brought to you by Toyota of Santa Cruz. Let's check out our current conditions here at News 46. Here's how things are shaping up. We do have a breeze kicking up out of the northwest to 14 miles an hour, and the temperature way up there to 73 already. Beautiful afternoon out there. 51% is the relative humidity. Now the barometric pressure is steady this hour at 29.99 inches of mercury. Across the rest of the nation, not a whole lot to talk about here in the west. Big upper level lows spinning through the.
By the way, good hairpiece.
Oh, thank you very much. One of the best. Oh, by the way, real quick, in case you didn't know.
Oh, this is good. Let's wait for the bell.
Just so you.
Wait for the bell.
Oh, yeah.
Does it pick it up, the bell? Okay, you can't do
Oh, good time, yes.
No, it's not going to pick up. Okay, go ahead.
The old familiar bell on every college campus. I remember this so well. I just want to give you, because if you haven't been in a newsroom, you may not quite know what the arrangement is here. And this is a skill you really have to learn. I think sportscasters, TV sportscasters learn this too, but they don't use the green wall nearly as much as a weather person. But what I'm actually looking at, if you haven't actually been in a newsroom, there are actually 3 monitors. Does anybody know where one of the monitors is that I'm looking at the whole time I'm doing my show? One is right over there. Where's another one? There's one in the camera. It's actually in the lens. So the expression in a newsroom is when you flip the prompter then becomes, the prompter of course is the teleprompter, which is actually in the lens, that now becomes a TV monitor. So if you're wondering, well, how could you be pointing to things like numbers you'll see in a moment here and things without looking into the without looking to the side, because I'm looking at a monitor. It's a big monitor right there in the camera. And of course there's another one on this side.
See your eyes are looking at the camera still.
So here's the deal. Beginning weathercasters, and I'm sure I did this too because I didn't know any better. I'd like to think that's fairly subtle here, but the beginning weathercasters will be like, because they're looking right at the monitor, just whoosh, 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 just straight on. Now you notice with me, I'm pretending like I'm looking at the wall. Can you see I'm kind of cheating? Almost see the bald spot. No, I'm kidding. So I'm kind of cheating, but what I'm actually looking at is my face is cheated this way. Cheat, by the way, is a theater term. If you don't know any theater. So I'm cheated this way, but my eyes are actually over there. So I'm kind of going, da-da-da-da, but my eyes are actually over there. Yeah. Same thing over here. So it's kind of a subtle thing. So it's not, because if you watch the beginners, that's what they do. And the other beginners, if they're lucky enough to have a prompter in the lens, now, well, I shouldn't say today. I've been out for a few years, obviously, but in the old days when I was in, not every newsroom had an opportunity, or had the option, I should say, of flipping the prompter over like that. So what you would see is, if the prompter was flipped and the guy or the gal was new, they would do all of this, and they would never even pretend to look at the wall. So the thing you have to keep in mind, as a sports person too, because sometimes the sports guys will get up there and reference scores or whatever. Sure. Not often, but sometimes. Very. But you have to remember, it's an illusion. So the audience thinks that you're looking at this. They don't know anything about a prompter being flipped over here. They think you're actually looking at the wall. So occasionally, you have to actually look back or pretend like you're looking at the wall. So if you do it, then you have to kind of, you'll notice that, I hope, as you go through this, that I'll occasionally flip a look here and then over here, but try not to do, just the straight kind of, 90 degrees.
Well, Gary, last week we showed this one beginner. You guys hear about the beginner, the guy who was doing the hand thing? We'll show it after you're done.
Oh, that'd be fun. Okay.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I have an idea what you're talking about, if not knowing.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Back to the
Right now, some cold rain coming out of that one. And the rest of the nation, not looking too bad, except for the fact we've got showers and thunderstorms going for the Ohio Valley and on up into the Tennessee Valley. For now, the East Coast appears to be spared the brunt of that action, but hang on for tomorrow. It looks like that storm will approach there. Out here in the west, though, kind of an interesting weather pattern developing here. The ridge of high pressure, as Patty indicated, hanging on for one more day, so the clouds kind of spilling over the top of that ridge. But embedded within the ridge right here is an upper level low that's approaching the coastline. That'll fling a few high clouds our way today from time to time, and then this should eventually move into southern California, while a cold front part of a larger upper-level storm system moving through the British Columbia area. That cold front will eventually move into northern California. By Saturday night, looks like Saturday night, Sunday, the front sweeps on through the state. It'll be a dry front this time around, but it will definitely drop our temperatures and probably kick up the breeze a bit just in time for the Memorial holiday weekend. Now, today, the high up in Eureka, 60 degrees, way down to San Diego, 73, and all places in between. Fairly mild, typical stuff here. A beautiful spring afternoon going in all locations. 96 in Redding, 100 degrees in Fresno. Hotter than that in Vegas and Palm Springs, what you might imagine, and 80 degrees today in Lake Tahoe. You've have some outdoor plans on the bay today. We'll expect the wind eventually to switch around to the west-northwest. 10 to 20 knots today with the seas 2 to 3 feet, and that swell southwesterly, westerly 1 to 3 feet. And the next high tide coming up just about an hour from right now at over 4 feet. So for the forecast today, mostly sunny skies. The sea breeze developing in the afternoon today. Some inland warming today, as if it wasn't warm enough yesterday. Should be even a bit warmer today. Here's the way we go as we look around the Central Coast. 74 the high today in Salinas. You folks down in Greenfield expect a high of 92. 82 in Carmel Valley. Yes, the Valley of the Sun, indeed. Mostly sunny over on the Monterey Peninsula today. 67 in Monterey, 68 in Seaside, 64 in PG. How about over in Santa Cruz? I mentioned before they'll be in the mid-70s on the boardwalk. Here's how it's looking in other locations, up into the 90s up in that Santa Clara Valley, which you might expect. And for the next 5 days, pretty nice one today, slightly cooler tomorrow, still warm inland as you can see, but the real change kicks in the first day of our upcoming Memorial Day holiday weekend. Mid-60s along the coast, upper 80s inland, and that cooling trend. And the brisk sea breeze will continue right on through Memorial Day itself, which is, of course, on Monday, usually signifying the unofficial start to summer. It's going to be a bit cooler, though it will be dry, should be pretty mild. And once again, here we are, Thursday, one of our favorite.
You may want to hold up here just for a quick second before I forget. We'll get lost in the pet of the week thing here.
That's a nice boom right there.
Yeah, well, here's, because I want to see that, I cringe when I watch it. Maybe some of you didn't even notice, but that little sound that I made where I kind of hiccuped as I was talking about, I don't know, wind direction on the bay or something. Yeah. I was actually positioning myself in that chair because that's the next shot we're coming up on. And I was trying to look at the monitors because, see, it's not like I have a phone with all this stuff here. I was looking at a monitor as I was sitting down, which is another thing you have to do as a weather person, be very flexible out on the set. So anytime you're walking around, you're looking around for monitors because you're watching TV just like the folks at home. That I was trying to sit down quietly and be ready to go because they came up live. This was preset. Now, typically at the end of a weather segment, not so much sports because the sports anchor guy usually sits at the desk. Sometimes they stand up. But the weather person though, because this is the family. I'm like the, I'm the kid that tells jokes at the dinner table or something. So the weather person kind of brings the kind of has the glue that brings the family together at the dinner table. So coming back normally, I wouldn't be sitting there. I'd be walking back to the set next to Patty and sitting down there. And there always is a monitor right there in the desk if you've never been inside there. So once I can get over to the chair as I'm looking for monitors around the room, then boom, I'll see it there and I'll sit down and try and quietly sit there. And there's a trick. I mean, if you're wearing a jacket in television, you kind of keep the jacket underneath what would you call this? The place where you'd be sitting in your posterior. You'd sit there so the jacket is all these little tricks you can learn. But anyway, bottom line is you would actually see the monitor. In fact, you'll often see when the camera comes back, you'll see anchors, sports people, weather people, their head is sort of down and they sort of subtly come up like this. Well, they're not looking at their fingernails, they're looking at a monitor right there in the desk. They've got 4 of them, one for each person there. Now, we can play this. The main reason I'm playing this is if you're going to be a weathercaster, probably not so much as a sportscaster, but I'm not saying it doesn't happen with sports people too.
Especially small markets.
In small markets, you have to be versatile. And of course, I love doing this. I would have rather done Pet of the Week than the weathercast, to be honest with you. But we just did this once a week. So sit down. None of this is scripted, of course, as you're probably going to quickly find out. And I did this once a week, and this gentleman, I think his name was Hal, would come in and bring a different pet every time, and we would just riff. Now, there's a floor director. You guys are probably talking about floor directors giving time cues, 1 minute, 30 seconds. 15 seconds or whatever. And so as I again, same old thing. I'm looking at Hal, but I'm actually cheating a glance to the floor director, who's usually right near the lens. Or these days, because they've cut back on jobs so much, oftentimes the floor director is just the camera guy giving you hand signals. But one guy on him, because boy, if you go over or short, the producer's going to strangle you. during the commercial, because then they've got to figure out how they're going to fill their show or cut something out or whatever. She's always constantly paying attention to the floor director. Anyway, Mike, that's it. If you wanted to start at the yes, the pet of the week. If you want to hear about the exciting pet of the week here.
Hello to Hal.
This is an interview thing.
Our new friend here, Hal. How are you?
I'm very good.
Good.
This is Big Daddy that I have for you today. He's a pug mix, and he's
Sorry,
about
he's
6 years old. He was over in Greenfield with 6 or 7 little ones.
Oh, yeah.
And he was sort of taking care of them all. And when we rescued him, why, he still is very protective of all of them. So we have there's about 4 left now, just his size.
He's a born leader and 4 just like
A little bit smaller, and but they're all basically the same color. And Big Daddy figures that they're his family, so he sort of herds them around and takes care of them.
Looks like he'd be a terrific lap dog.
Very good lap dog, and great for somebody that didn't want to do a lot of exercising.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be outside; he can be inside, and very good dog for that.
How do you think Big Daddy would work with kids?
I don't know. He's not mean at all. I don't know whether he's been around kids or not, but he seems to react all right. But he isn't very lively. He's a rather laid-back dog. So, but he was with a little guy over here today and got along real well.
Is that right? Good. Looks like he's got kind of a stoic demeanor on him there. Hey, Big Daddy. Hey.
You say so.
Try to be all hip, you know.
Oh, look at that.
He's got a lot of character.
Yes, he does. And you know, the other characters are back at the SPCA, and if you'd like to get a hold of one of them, or Big Daddy here, take him right off.
Nice
the
transition,
top, if you will. Here are the numbers to call. 373-2631. And Hal, as always, we do appreciate you coming in from the Monterey SPCA, and all of our best to Big Daddy and his big friends back at the SPCA.
We thank you.
Once again, we will say hello to our friend over at the news desk. and that would be
I don't know.
Patty Piper.
Very nice.
You were asking why I got out of the business. That's why. No. Mike, you want to pause this just for a second? Real quick, a couple things just came to mind. And of course, if you have a question about
By the
it.
way, I wanna interrupt you.
Oh, yeah.
Did you notice that when he was done, he smiled and goes, that's the way you look until the director.
look away.
Or they'll applaud before, so. You gotta-
Even though it may seem like an eternity, and until they tell you you're clear, and they will say clear, just assume the camera's on and just smile. And it may look strange at home too, but it'll look stranger if you start going about your business or stand up and leave or
Wait till
something.
you hear cut,
Yeah.
or you can see like the monitor if the camera's off you. Then you
Right. Usually the floor director will say clear, so you're done. Oh, real quick, and Mike has probably already talked about this, but when you're communicating numbers, especially on the radio, but television too, did you notice I didn't say call 32641, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Put them together, 3261. 3261 as opposed to 3261. Now, why would that be? Why would you deliberately say 3261 instead of 326? Not so much to save time. What someone else said? That's it. Easy to remember. That's exactly it. There are little things like that. And if you start writing, especially if you're writing, hopefully for yourself, on television or on the radio, there are little things like that where you're writing. Mike and I know this from our radio days. If you're talking about, Bill's Pizza Shop or whatever, giving the address to Bill's Pizza Shop is meaningless. People are driving around in LA in their cars, so you want to give a location or give a couple landmarks. It's across from the Grauman's Chinese Theater next to the 7-Eleven, catty corner from the blah, 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 as opposed to, because nobody's writing down, phone numbers and street addresses. So we want to, they actually, there's a word for this, Mike's probably talked about, psychographics. Psychographics. So it's not just demographics. It's not just who's watching me in terms of their gender, their age and all of that, but what are they actually thinking about while I'm doing my newscast, weathercast, sportscast. It's very important to be thinking about, because I want to get inside my viewer's mind, because the more I can connect with that person, the more they're going to stay with me. So there's a whole literature you could read about on the web called psychographics. Anyway, you want to add anything there? Anybody have a question, please?
Question, yes.
But you think so
How
far?
do you do that voice? I don't know what to call it.
What voice is that?
You mean
like that.
professional voice like this?
There you go.
That would be my broadcast. Well,
It comes naturally.
it does kind of actually. Mike and I were both.
Different from what I'm hearing now.
Yeah, it is different.
It sounds like that like The Voice.
Yeah. You know what it is? I mean, it's funny because I hear that now.
The School of Bill Jones.
Yeah, I know it is. I mean, I hear it now and I go, oh man, I punched that up way too much. But really, when you're doing television or radio, you need to bring it up a little bit. And by that, I don't mean volume. I mean, what you're talking about is the inflections. Where you go up and down and up and down. Now, again, it's a good teachable moment. Now, why might that be a good idea to have that voice going when you're watching a bunch of graphics up here, as opposed to kind of just doing my normal speaking voice like I'm doing right now? Hi, everybody. How you doing? I'm Gary. And
So it keeps you like a rhythm, it keeps you interested.
Yeah.
As opposed to just one voice gets kind of nuts.
that's exactly why. Because you got to bring more energy. And with television, it's amazing how so many people, you talk to them one-on-one, they seem like they're very engaging, interesting people. And you put a camera on them, if they don't bring any more energy than the normal energy, they wash out on the screen. So you have to actually not like, oh my God, look at me, I'm so excited. Nothing like that, but it's got to be, so it has to be real. But your enthusiasm, I don't know, Mike may not agree with me on this one, I've never really talked about this before, but my enthusiasm meter, and so is Mike's, is usually pretty high to begin with. But I am going to bring it up at least 10%, maybe 20, when I'm actually on the air for the very reason you just said, because I want people to stay with me. And the inflection and the change in rhythm, the change in the pacing and all that, which you can learn. You don't really need me to teach you that, even though I could, and Mike's doing a great job, of course, this semester. But that's something you can do on your own. You can listen to yourself and practice and push it a little bit, kind of thing.
Yeah, I emphasize.
So you can hear how you're actually doing. Anybody else? These are great. The questions are more important than this, really, because that's why I came here, to answer questions. But anybody else question? Or Mike may have one, or he can. Now, Mike, what I'll have you do is, if you don't mind, just blow past the next weathercast. Not because I don't think it's worth listening to, but it's basically just another weathercast. You've already seen that. Oh, it is? Oh.
Let's see. Oh, hang on.
Well, see if we can go forward. Oh, there you go. At least she was when I knew her 12 years ago.
That day up there, that long club.
Yeah, why don't we just go past this, just in the interest of time. Now, we're going to go to, anybody familiar with CMN, Children's Miracle Network? Anybody ever heard of that? Anybody ever pledged? Anybody? Apparently not. I think it's Channel 9 here in LA. I'm not really sure. I think it's, what is it?
No, Channel 9's KCAL.
KCAL 9.
Oh, I'm sorry. God, I'm also old school. KCAL, sorry.
What was the channel that you mentioned?
Oh, is this a
KSH, yeah, here, I forgot about this. So we can spin back a little bit. Here we go. Yeah, let's go. Just stop right here. Here we go.
Pretty good stuff.
You got to do weird stuff in your weather.
So
All right.
let's make our plans right now.
Watch a sports guy do this. I doubt it.
Joining us. We'll see you back here again tomorrow afternoon.
I don't see a ring on her finger.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, she was married, though.
Oh, she's married to me.
Possibly a little bit cooler, but not
What?
all that much cooler
Here you go.
in the inland
you're
areas.
doing the
And
weather
I'd like to thank the
location.
Prevent family for making this day a very special.
This is part of you would do something like the Gary said, this is like
shot.
doing your stand-ups. Of course, you're doing your stand-ups, but sometimes you'll have to do like wild things, to be in a swimming pool, a big thing of mud, a jelly, up in a balloon.
That's right, that's
You know,
right.
upside down, maybe doing a stunt with a stunt man, on a horse,
And-
or something goofy like this.
And this one came about merely because we were doing so many live shots in Monterey because the beach is right there. The cameraman, on a whim, notice how he didn't get in the sand. He said, hey, why don't we bury you up to your neck? Have any of you ever had this happen? Been buried in the sand up to your neck?
As a kid or something.
Is it just me, or am I a freak? It's kind of creepy. It's a little creepy.
Yeah.
Because you could not get out. If they just walked away, you couldn't. You'd be stuck. There's no way you can move that dirt unless you're Superman or something. You are stuck. There's a weird, very weird feeling.
Because the weight.
The weight of the sand, the dirt, it's very heavy, very heavy. Either that or I wasn't doing enough biceps before I did the live shot, but bicep training. But anyway, you see the shot. Here we go. Just a little tease for.
For me, and we might even see you back for the 11 with any luck at all. Thank you, Mike. Back to you.
But first, we're going to hear from Gary, who is trying to hide from the heat. Gary?
I'm Gary Butterworth. Who says they don't blame the weatherman?
Look at the hairpiece. It's all right.
I've got the forecast coming up. I'll just be using my head right after this.
Boom. Sorry.
And we know that Gary is in Florida because we
Now, you might want to pause just as I can set this up a little bit here.
I don't like that anchor guy. He's not very good.
Yeah, Romney Dunbar. Anyway, I shouldn't say his name, Romney Dunbar, but popular thing, most popular with many audiences, apparently not this one. It's a fundraising deal. It's sort of like the Jerry Lewis March of Dimes kind of thing. It's for helping underprivileged kids, that kind of thing. Anyway, so they flew me back to Orlando, Florida, to do a number of live shots. And two reasons why I'm doing this: another interview opportunity, but there's another sports reference here. Now we're going to reference a football player who hasn't played in a number of years. How many of you are New England Patriots fans, but before, actually I think it was the Patriots, before Tom Brady? Mike's going to have to help me out here.
Anybody Patriots fan?
Anybody, Patriots fans?
This is not very,
Drew Bledsoe, you're about to see him interviewed right here.
oh, that's right. This is
Yes,
yeah.
here we go.
It's not very patriotic. Okay.
Is to go to Disneyland in Orlando, Florida for the big kickoff of CMN. And that's where Gary Butterworth. Gary, are you having fun?
Yeah, you bet, Karina and Rondi. It's great to see both of you. And I'll tell you, I'm going to talk to Ben Williams about the humidity here in Florida. It's not quite the same as it is back there on our beautiful Central Coast, but yes, we have been having a terrific time here at Orlando. Of course, we're at Disney World here in Orlando, the Epcot Center. There's some 11 nations here, well represented. I see we had lunch in China, and I believe we ran through Norway and had a little tea in Britain. And by the way, I'm here with Kendra Howell, who's the CMN director for the local Salinas Memorial Hospital. And Kendra, this has been such a great experience for us. We don't want to diminish the fact that we've been sitting in on meetings and getting ready for the big experience. What have you come away with at this point now?
Well, I think what's really great is the fact that you've got 170 hospitals represented here, 200 TV stations, and we're all pulling together, getting ready for the CMN Champions Show, so there's a lot of energy here.
I'll tell you, I know one person that's excited about it, and I know a lot of our viewers are too. It gives me great pride and pleasure to introduce to you Drew Bledsoe of the New England Patriots. Drew, thanks for joining us today. It's a pleasure.
Glad to be a part of this organization.
Give us some insights. I know I saw you last year hosted. It was my first year last year. You did a great job. What are you looking for this year in terms of...
Well, the broadcast is going to be amazing. I mean, we've got Amy Grant's doing a live show. We've got a live Motown show. They're going to take a bunch of us quarterbacks out, put us on the golf course, and do a little skills challenge, which should be entertaining to
I'll
say
bet
the
you
least.
hit the greens occasionally yourself.
Once in a while. But really the stars of the show, as they are every year, are going to be the champion kids. We have 61 champions this year to represent the hospitals around the nation that Children's Miracle Network helps. And the stories of these kids' lives are truly amazing. I met a boy this morning, actually was hit by a car, run over. His parents were told they had basically no chance. This morning he walks up on stage, gives a speech to 400 and 500 people, and is just doing great. So I mean, and all 61 of the stories are like that. It's really amazing and very motivating.
How did you get involved in this personally? Obviously, you have a lot of demands on your time in addition to the football field.
Well, I was honored to have Joe Lake from the Children's Miracle Network come and ask me to be involved on a regional level in New England 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And obviously was honored, jumped to the chance, and from there it's just been a no-brainer to continually increase my involvement because it's such a great organization.
What's your feeling on the fact that we have to break away pretty quickly, but the money all stays local? I know that's important.
That's probably the most important thing about Children's Miracle Network. Not only does the money all stay local, but every single dime that people call in and donate goes directly to the hospitals. There's no administrative charge that comes out of your dollar. There's no television charge, nothing that comes out of your dollar. All goes directly to your local hospital, which is really amazing.
Great pleasure to meet you, and on behalf of Kendra Howell, we'll look forward to seeing you May 30th and 31st, live from Orlando, Florida. Bye-bye for now.
All right, you need a Bud Light, Gary. Anyway, have a great time.
I couldn't hear what he says. I'm like, yeah, it's funny, whatever. Maybe just pause this for a real quick second, if you don't mind, Mike. The one thing I was going to mention, I don't know if you picked up on that, it was kind of a quick out there because I got a signal kind of at the last moment about, hey, we got to wrap this thing up, get out of it, get out of it, get out of it. So as I was asking my question, I saw this, and I thought, well, I'm already to ask Drew a question. I'm not going to just not ask the question. But you notice how I said, well, we're going to have to somehow subtly let Drew know and folks at home not to freak out back here that we're going to wrap this thing up pretty quickly here. But he got a chance, and he knew we were kind of tight on time. Then I just threw it. It's called a throw. You throw it back to the anchors. They're throwing out to me. The bugs everywhere. Anybody ever been to Florida in the summertime? Just they put up a light. So for years now, some of my buddies I used to work there years ago still call me Bug Light. Not Bud Light, but Bug Light because of that. Those lights there. I'm going to actually ask Mike to just go through this. I'll tell you what it is real quick, but not play it. It goes on a little long. There's a lot of this in the background, and I didn't know it at the time, but if you do a live shot and you're in the public, this is called First Night Santa Cruz. It was based after, I think, First Night Boston, I think was the first one in the country. And it's alcohol-free. It's New Year's Eve. I forgot the beautiful co-anchor, the beautiful reporter next to me. I've forgotten her name now. It's been a long time. But she and I were sent out there on New Year's Eve. And we sat out there and froze basically for 3 hours, but did a ton of cut-ins during first night, just interviewing families and stuff. And I think in the interest of time, I'll ask him to just kind of go through it. And you see a lot of people making faces in the background. And, that's what you get when you do a live shot. But anyway, I don't think unless you want to just see a moment or two, but there's not really a whole lot to really talk about.
Rockin' time with the Rocket Orchestra. And you know what, a lot of families around here tonight because
holiday.
Well, Elsa, that's right. Gary Butterworth there. Let me tell you, the Robinson family is here tonight. And they, I understand, just came down from Prudendale. Mr. Robinson, is this your first time here?
Mrs. Robinson.
Well, it's really a pleasure to be
Still to
here.
come.
I can barely hear myself, but I'm really enjoying it.
Your son Jacob is here tonight. Jacob, is there anything in particular you're looking for? Or are you just kind of out here with your family having a good
Like Matt
time?
Damon.
I'm out here with my family, waiting for the clock to hit 12, New Year's 98, everything.
Well, good for you. You know, it's only a stone's throw away from right here. As a matter of fact, just to get our clock synced up here, we're coming up on 10 o'clock tonight. Only 2 more hours left in this year of 1997. I wonder if your mom has any New Year's resolutions.
Mrs. Robinson.
Mrs. Robinson back there? Oh, we'll have to go find her. There she is. Mrs. Robinson
hotel.
from Bloomingdale.
Well,
Any
Dustin.
New Year's resolutions for you?
That's a good question. I resolved this year not to make any resolutions.
You know, I like that. I think that's something we can all live with. Well, here we are tonight at First Night Santa Cruz. Of course, this festivity has been going on since 1994.
This is just beyond
We
absurd.
expect to have roughly 20,000 people here tonight.
And no alcohol involved. I know, it's
Time to get
shocking,
here.
I know, but
And there's
anyway.
still quite a bit of room by the old clock tower. So if you want to come down tonight, absolutely
Oh,
come
yeah.
down. But being a weatherman, I can tell you, the low clouds and patchy fog are starting to move into the Bay Area, so it's a little on the chilly side. Dress warmly in layers, and also wear some comfortable shoes, because there's some 40 different locations with some 750 artists and 300.
Anyway, you can go past this, Mike. That's, you've probably got enough here of that. But the one thing, again, I would say is this is the kind of thing you would be asked to do.
Wait, here's some more.
Kind of like I don't want to pass this. Maybe go back. I want to, this is the beginning of this. The other thing they asked me to do, and I'll set, maybe I'll,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to set this up real quick. There's a thing called Super Lotto, and I don't even know because I haven't looked at it for so long now, but it used to be, I think it was every like Saturday night, I think.
They had it on Channel 9 for many years.
For Channel 9, it was aired on Channel 9 here when I was up there. I was asked to be the host for all of California, to fly up to Sacramento. Actually, I didn't fly. I drove to Sacramento, make up, met all the people, and live on the air, I was going to do this. So as a way of promoting this event, which happened across the state, the station made these promos for me, and here's one of them right here. Mike's going to play for you here. Here we go, late one night at Gary's house.
Like Saturday Night Live. That's good. Super Lotto.
It was just a dream.
Oh, remember Cisco and Neighbor? Maybe not.
You've seen ace weatherman Gary Butterworth run circles around the weather, but how would Gary do in the Big Sur Marathon?
Marathon? Huh?
How about the KION 5K?
5K? Okay.
If you can't see yourself running a marathon, but you'd like to have some fun, join Gary Butterworth for a picturesque 5K run Sunday, April 27th at Highway 1 and Rio Road in Carmel. Call 625-6287 for more information. Don't worry, Gary. You've still got a year to train for the marathon.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is my, no, not necessary. No, that's just part of the tape. Anyway, that is it. I wanted to just give you a sense of if you were going to say, apply for a job at some point, they would definitely want to see, obviously want to see a weathercast, but they would also probably want to see a short little interview snippet. And they'd like to see how you can handle a group kind of on your feet, think on your feet, dealing with like a crowd. Because that's the kind of thing weathercasters do. And again, to some extent, sports people do too. I don't think nearly as much.
Well, especially
but
having the sportscaster at a location in front of Staples Center, the Coliseum.
Yes, yes.
Put on the spot quite a bit.
Right, and you have to deal with fans that are just being fans,
That's
all
their
that kind of
next
stuff.
assignment they're gonna do next week, actually.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Do a stand-up in front of
They
it.
do one with notes, and then next week, no notes.
Oh, good, good.
I throw them like I'm the anchor, and I throw it to them.
I'm glad Mike brought that up, because one of the things I was going to mention just a moment ago, and I neglected to, when I did the CMN thing with Drew Bledsoe, in what we call the beginning part of this, the wraparound at the very beginning, there was no prompter there. Usually in the field there is, as far as I know, there's virtually never a prompter in the field. So when you're in the field, you might look at a couple notes before you go on, but as a weathercaster, that thing goes back in my back pocket, and I'm talking to my friend here now. So there's no cheating to look down, any of that kind of stuff. So again, the ability to think on your feet, string some sentences together, and just trust yourself that the words that come out will be ones that the audience will appreciate, ones that will actually kind of work. And as I say, a great training ground for that. I mean, for me, more than probably anything was radio, actually, to be honest with you, radio. But secondarily would have been doing kind of what I'm doing right now, speaking with some people and fielding questions and taking questions, you know, that kind of stuff, kind of thinking on your feet. I don't know how you're doing as far as time. Did you want to take a break at some point? Did you?
Why don't we
Yeah.
take a 10-minute break, come back, and then whatever questions you have for Gary, we'll close it out. I do have one question. We'll do it after the break. Okay?
Perfect. Why don't we do that?
Pause the tape and then.
African, they hate you depending on who's winning. But same with politics, by the way. But let me, if I can, I guess. Oh, there we go. There you go. Oh, I played all those little years of Little League. Paid off. Nice catch. What I was going to say was, there's an. Do we have? By the way, do we have any English majors in here? Any English majors in here? Okay, so you might actually correct me on this because it's been a little while. This is a tool that I use, but to actually explain precisely what the grammatical term is, I may be a little hazy on that, but I can tell you what works though. This is really important in sports, really important. People don't tune in to the 6 o'clock news to watch the olds. They tune in for the news. So one of the things you might consider is, instead of saying, the Giants won tonight or today, now that would be accurate, but you're reporting something that already happened. Now there's something we can do in the English language which because this actually, when we're going to use the past tense like this could mean that they won. Actually, I take that back. Let's cross that off. Let's use those two words. The Giants won. We could be talking about them beating the Cardinals today or the series in 2010, or it could be any time in the past, right? What could we do as a writer to make it sound like it just happened? You could say the Giants win. That's possible. Oh, that sounds like more like a newspaper. Giants win, read all about it. That's possible. There's another trick, though, that on-air newscasters use. I believe it's called the present perfect, I believe, or the past perfect. Maybe it's called the past perfect. There's a simple word you could... There you have is the key word. Good job. The Giants have won. Now, you're still talking about the past. I think it's called past participle. Past perfect, excuse me. So you're still talking about the past, but it sounds like it just happened. The Giants have won. The Giants have won the game. Now, it sounds like, we're just playing word games here, but you're really not. Because again, when you're operating in this kind of a voice in your writing and your speaking, it will give your reporting a lot more sense of urgency, like it just happened. It's immediate. Again, people don't tune in for the olds. They don't tune in to read a newspaper about what happened yesterday or earlier today. They tune in to find out what just happened, what's going on right now. So one of the things you might think about, again, is using have. So anyway, I want to digress. I think that's all the writing I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to put all of you to sleep. But I would encourage you to think about your writing. It's a very big part.
Giants will win.
Oh, there you go. There.
Hopefully, top of the ninth inning.
That would be the perfect tense, the perfect win tense. So future tense. So I believe there were some questions.
Any questions
Because
out there?
I have covered pretty much everything I'd planned on covering.
Yeah.
It'd be much more helpful, I think, to everyone, including me. Fire away here. So
like, how can a starting reporter or journalist like ourselves land their first market gig, say a small market, or even like to get something here in LA? Like say a production assistant or something like that.
Yeah, in LA. Production assistant, much better chance than on air. On air, good luck. Very, very difficult. Not impossible. But even in radio, it's very, very hard to start in LA. I think the first thing I would suggest to you, it depends how serious you are about this, about how much you want to invest in this. But, and I suppose Mike has probably already talked about some of this, but I would want to think long and hard about how much do I really want this? Because I would already be thinking about, well, there are stations in Palm Springs. There are little cable operations maybe up in, Victorville, or, do I want to maybe start in, say, Reno, Nevada, or even though that's a little trickier because you got a lot of tourists there and stuff. I would already be thinking about much smaller markets, like maybe up to Redding or Chico, or other markets that just, frankly, it's just very difficult to start in a market this big. If you want to do something off camera, though, you have much better opportunity. It's all about marketing. Mike and I have a mutual friend that I've known at KNBC. Any Channel 4 News fans here? Do you watch Fred Rogan? Probably some of you do. What's that?
The Dean.
The Dean, yes, the Dean, of course. I forgot about that, that's right. I haven't actually watched that for a while. My buddy Alex, if you watch Channel 4, up until about 2 weeks ago, he finally left. He's moving to St. Louis, oddly enough, tonight, that's where he's from. He just wanted to leave LA, but he was up in the helicopter for about 5 years for NBC, and before that for Channel 9, KCAL, CBS, and he worked for Channel 5 for a number of years as well, KTLA. But he was sort of the main photographer, shooter from the helicopter. And he would do live reports, sometimes on camera, sometimes not. But he started in Bakersfield, and he was really good. So he went up there, became a shooter in Bakersfield. He was up there for about 6 months, and at the same time, he got a gig at CNN, which in those days, I guess it's still there in that same building where Unistar used to be in Hollywood.
6460 Sunset Boulevard.
Oh boy, you have a good memory.
No, correct, 64 3rd.
I'll take your word on that one. It's been too many years for me. But anyway, he got a job as an audio guy for CNN. And again, he's really good. And within 6 months, he had a gig down at, I think it was either KCAL or I think it might have been KTLA, as a shooter on the street. But within a year, he was up in the helicopter, and that's the plum job. Everybody that's a shooter wants to be up in the helicopter. But he was extraordinarily good, but he couldn't even start in LA. Now, he was lucky enough to get, I shouldn't say lucky, he was smart enough to get a job up in Bakersfield. Then he'd commute down to LA on the weekends and do some stuff for CNN. I take that back. You know where he started, actually? He started at Torrance Cable. He did that in his off hours. He was working as, I don't know, some delivery boy or some delivery guy or whatever for several years. And he was doing this Torrance Cable stuff, and he put together enough tape where he created some interest in Bakersfield, and they hired him to be a shooter. So I would say Bakersfield, Palm Springs, some of the more outlying, if you're really committed to staying in LA, if you wouldn't mind living just a little ways away. But the idea of just starting in LA, I'm not saying don't try, certainly try everything. But I think a more realistic approach would be, what are some of these other markets where I can kind of get my feet wet a little bit, get to know some people, and start there and get some tape together, and mainly get some experience and make some contacts. It was true in radio. I don't know if it's still true in TV or not, but I had a guy, any of you from the Bay Area by any chance? Bay Area? Oh, well, a lot of folks are. Now, you're probably too young to remember this guy, but your parents probably listened to him. He was my former boss. He was Dr. Don Rose on KFRC. You're too young to remember him. Anyway, he's he was sort of, I almost said the Rick Dees, but Rick who? Who's the contemporary version of, who's the big guy? Howard Stern, I guess, would be it today. Who would be?
Howard Stern.
Probably Howard Stern, someone just huge like that. Well, Dr. Don Rose was the Howard Stern of San Francisco. And I just happened to be working for him. He had a business associate who owned a station that I was on. Bottom line is, but Rose gave me the best advice. I used to listen to my air checks and stuff. Rose actually said, even if you hate the job, stay at your job at least a year. Because if you get a reputation of bouncing around every 6 months and going somewhere else, that doesn't look good in a resume. So even if you hate it in, El Centro, but another market, by the way, El Centro. Don't laugh. Hunter Fresnel, my compadre up there at KION, that was his first job for about a year and a half. And he went from there over to the Central Coast of KION where I met him. So that's another small market you might consider. So I really look into those outlying markets. As far as the actual production stuff, I mean, even though I have a degree in broadcasting, my focus was always on air. So I'm not, maybe Mike has some insight into that. As far as actually, I mean, obviously you have to have a resume together and all of that. But I don't really have any special insight into the off-air stuff. But definitely on air, you gotta have tape, you have to have, a demo of some kind. And with any luck at all, maybe some experience somewhere, even if it's a cable deal. I think I asked you guys, your colleagues last time I was here, if there was any kind of newscast produced here on campus? Is there any kind of cable thing?
News writing. Anybody have Jim Giggins' class?
Oh, nice.
That's emphasized.
Maybe could you help us out with there? Because that would probably be, that would be wonderful to know. Is it worthwhile? Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Especially for writing, huh?
Yeah, it's a writing class. You get to cover stories like perhaps accidents, death, whatever.
Okay.
And he emphasizes a lot all the steps, and he gets really into the detail about. So
Good.
I encourage people to think it's a great class.
Do you remember if he called that the, did he call this over here the past perfect or the present perfect? You don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that. But that's actually a standard.
The Giants win, the Giants won.
That's a standard kind of news writing kind of something one would study in a class like that. Do you get to do anything on camera while you're there? Any kind of
No, we just
production?
presented in front of class, like how to do an actual story with the scenarios, and he also teaches us how you're supposed to write numbers out and.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Well, I would, again, I don't even know this person. I haven't been in the class, but I would highly recommend those of you that have your vision of yourself being the sports guy or gal, if you're really serious about it, I'd get in that class immediately. That will help you in a number of different ways. But, well, good. I hope that helps a little bit. I mean, sorry I can't help you a lot with the production, but I wish my buddy Alex were here. He could probably help you in a lot. Probably give some names, too, but unfortunately he's out of town now. Someone you might look up. How much about anything else?
The Giants prevailed, by the way.
Oh, my God. 6-4, is that the, oh, my gosh.
3-1.
3-1.
One more win to do.
It ain't over till it's over, but it's looking SFKC, I think. Since I used to be in the prediction business. Yes, Royals, very exciting. So anything else, seriously, any of the other letters, any of the other questions about weather? Yeah, please, yeah.
What's the worst weather you ever had to cover? Like, worst storm, maybe there was like a drought.
Oh, that's a good, yeah.
People's lives actually
Right.
depended on your broadcast.
Yeah. That's a really good question. There are a few that I can think of. Just the first one I'll give you sort of generically because it didn't happen just once, it happened several times. If any of you ever spent any time in the Great Valley of California at all, like anywhere from Bakersfield up to Sacramento, you know what Tule fog is? Have you heard of the Tule fog up there? They actually call it Tule fog.
Is that because of Tulare?
Yes, because of Tulare. It's actually it's a Native American term, but it's the kind of fog they have up there that's so thick that when you're driving it, and by the way, I recommend you do not drive in it, you literally can't see the hood ornament on your car. I mean, it's that thick. You can't see it. When I worked in Bakersfield on 3 different occasions, driving home, I couldn't find my house. I literally couldn't find it. I had to stop, get out of the car. I'd have to, roll down the windows and look at the lines because you can't see anything. It's like you're just driving in the soup. It's like nothing you would ever see here at all. So that would be one. That's always difficult. And that was, when you say people's lives are at stake, you've probably seen it on the news occasionally. I hope not too often. What happens is if there is a car that's foolish enough or has to be driving in the Tule fog, and if they're driving too fast, you cannot possibly stop if there's a car stopped in front of you. So if you're driving too fast and a car, for whatever reason, it stalls or it's driving slowly or whatever, you will hit it and it's a chain reaction. And I'm not exaggerating. You'll see 75, 80 cars crash together like a train. And this happens maybe every 10 years or so, thankfully not too often. But so people's lives are at stake. So they're always listening for will there be fog tomorrow? Will it be clear? We're not magicians here. We go with all what we call the forecast models. I look at all the models, give my very, very best forecast, not always taking everything verbatim from the National Weather Service as some beginners do. I'd always try and put my own little kind of, stamp on it. So that's one. The other one would be black ice. Black ice is very dangerous to drive in. There really wasn't much in the Central Valley. Texas, and up in the Northwest, as having spent my radio days up in the Portland area, when I first started out, a lot of black ice up there, very, very scary to drive in. But the one that, when people's lives are at stake, was I had to go on the air and tell people that were this close to asking you in this one area around the Salinas Valley, in this one particular area, that we're about to give you the warning to leave your homes tonight. So be packed and be ready to drive. Now, I never had to give that because the National Weather Service never actually put that out, and my general manager and news director were watching very closely. It's just raining on and on. It's almost inconceivable today, right, in this drought we're thinking about. It was about 90, I want to say about maybe 98, 99, somewhere in that time frame. It was just rainstorm after rainstorm. And the guy across town, and I don't blame him for doing it, by the way, his name is Jim. I don't blame him at all. But he, on his own, told people to evacuate. And as it turns out, they didn't really have to. So many people were kind of upset with him, like, man, we had to move our stuff out and you said to leave. And now, I don't blame him for doing it, but that was it. So yeah, that was the scariest kind of nervous time for me. In fact, I was the 5, 6, and 11 weather guy. And they were so just stretched as far as personnel. They would have me, because I was kind of the straight up meteorologist, the guy doing the morning and the noon show was more of a personality type or whatever. So they were having me come in after the 11 and do cut-ins and stuff during the morning and the noon show, because they wanted a kind of a straight up meteorologist to actually give the actual weather, because this is where people were tuning in, not just to get a smile or something, but they really needed to know in terms of the leagues. Those are the scariest. Those are some of the more serious ones. How about some lighthearted stuff? Now, Professor Carlucci, I think you had a question about
Yes,
something
sir.
back here.
You heard about the news anchor, I believe is in a small town in North Dakota, that accidentally said a very foul four-letter word.
Oh my goodness.
Left the microphone on and he said a horrible thing and he got fired the next day. Have you had any kind of issues like that in your career? That's something that's happened close to that, or something you were probably not in denial, but maybe you wish you didn't say?
Oh, yes.
That came out like you wish you could grab it and put it back in your mouth, kind of thing. Any bizarre, awkward situation?
I have. I can think of one specifically in television, actually one in radio. Can I tell radio stories here too? Is that all right? Okay. First one in TV. This is the obvious one. Many times when you're doing your weather forecast, I shouldn't say many times, there are times where you will, by the way, you can tell the director in advance if you're going to roll video or not, because there's usually a lot of good weather video. Sometimes the anchors want to just do it, but oftentimes I'll say, no, I want to do that. I want to roll that into my newscast. So there was some sort of terrible, I think it was actually a fire or something where there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the Midwest somewhere. And I was rolling some video, and at this particular time, I wanted to be actually in the chroma key, meaning I wanted to be seen on screen while the video was rolling behind me, as opposed to kind of getting out of the way and just letting the director take it full screen, which you always have as an option, because I wanted to point out some things on the screen, just like I might point out it's going to be 74 in Santa Monica tomorrow, whatever. So this is one of those things you really couldn't plan it. It was just sort of bizarre, but it happened. And to this day, it just brings a smile on my face. I mean, how could you plan something like this? So they're showing some video behind me. And just before it got to the place where I was going to point something out, as it turned out, I was standing in profile like this. Now, ladies, forgive me. I probably shouldn't be telling this story. But what happened was there was a fireman with a hose, actually, in the video. And again, you really couldn't even plan this. And the water from the hose, apparently, was being projected in such a way where I'm standing in front of the video, and I picked up on it as I looked back and went, oh, I started laughing like that. And of course the anchors are just busting, oh my God, I can't believe it. And now how do you start talking about some horrible tragedy about the weather after that has happened? So it was just like one of those moments where I went, oh, sorry, can I compose myself and then try to talk about death and mayhem from the tornado or whatever. So that was the most obvious one from television. The one in radio actually is one that I truly am ashamed of, and I'll probably burn somewhere south of here at some point. There was a day in radio, I don't think this is true anymore quite as frequently, but where you had to read something for the emergency broadcast system. I'm sure that some stations still do it. I don't hear it as often as we used to. I put a radio station on the air in 1983. That's a few years ago. In Simi Valley, close to where I live now. I live in Moore Park these days, Ventura County. And the cart was broken, cartridge was broken. We used to play carts on the air for the Federal Emergency Broadcast Network. It was like this taped, very big voice, this whole thing about, in the event of an emergency, blah, 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 blah. If in the event of nuclear war, then you need to go and get under your desk and do all these crazy things. It's very, very serious stuff. Well, the cart wasn't working. So during one of the songs, the general manager, not even the news director, the general manager just came in and goes, the cart broke this morning. Can you just read this live? Just read this live during your next break. It's fine. It'll cover it. Which was a huge mistake because I had a friend of mine, a young guy named Kid Nordoff, who actually went on to become a pretty big disc jockey, way more popular than I ever was. He worked in Phoenix and Sacramento and stuff. Anyway, he was actually in the studio with me. And do you know what it's like when you're in the library, maybe in high school, maybe still here in Santa Monica, maybe not as much in college, but you kind of get your tickle bone kind of going and you can't stop laughing? Here I am reading this 60-second spot, and it literally was 60 seconds, about death in the event of nuclear war, in the event of a terrible tragedy. And about sentence number 2, Kid Nordoff was in here with me, and he started to giggle a little bit. And it was like something like Mike and I would be doing. Once the laughter starts, you cannot stop. I wish to goodness I had a tape of this because it went on for like 3.5 minutes. And I couldn't get serious enough to read the thing. The phone calls are, what is that guy doing? And just so he keeps laughing during nuclear war and all this stuff. And so the general manager's like, looking in at me like, come on, get through it. And it was one of those things where I literally couldn't become serious enough to finish reading it. So it just went on. And again, I'm still ashamed of it, but it just happened. It's one of those things where, when you're on live, crazy stuff will happen. And so that's what happened, and I'll never live it down.
Tell them your first day at the Bakersfield station when you got so excited to go.
Oh, yeah.
What happened? Tell them that the guy got mad.
Yeah, okay, bro. Yeah, maybe last crazy story here. This first day on the air, paid job, by the way, in television. I'd been learning the computer graphics because that was the really hard part in Bakersfield. I didn't really have any experience doing the graphics. I'd had, CNN, like video and stuff. I dummied up for a demo tape and all that. And I was fine. As you can see, I'm pretty comfortable working with the camera and all that. But the graphics were, really scaring me. So I was spending all my time trying to figure out these graphics and then use the clicker and all that stuff to make it work. And so what happens is, you probably know, if just watching the news, usually there's a sports guy, 2 anchor people, weather person over here. I say sports guy, it could be sports gal too, whatever. So the weather person's over here. And typically they will talk a little bit about the weather and, wow, those triple digits again here at Bakersfield. Wow, Gary's got the forecast coming in just saying, so Gary, what's the big weather story today? And blah, 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 blah. And I started just ad-lib something about it, forgetting about the fact that I was supposed to throw to commercial, right? Because commercials pay all the bills. You got to air the commercials. And so instead, what Mike is talking about, instead of throwing to the commercial, I was so excited and eager to literally jump up on the stage. And where I worked in Bakersfield, it literally was a raised platform where the weather deal was, and you had like this little alcove here. It was actually kind of cool. And so I said, yeah, really hot today, Don and Jackie, and thanks for asking. And I jumped right out. I just stood up. Now remember, the camera is locked down in basically a 3-shot. So it was Don, Jackie, and me, and there wasn't a whole lot of headroom, right? Because the camera's locked down here. And the camera guy, like Alcy, it's locked in there. He's not panning and following me. He's ready to go to the commercials. He was locked in. So imagine what it's like if a guy stands up, and so now you're looking at like maybe here down, and then this half body just walks right out of the screen, because I was jumping up on stage and I started to do my thing. Well, the director, who was not a nice guy, very big, brutish, literally a bully, as I learned very quickly. He would get mainly women. I didn't see any guys in tears, but he would berate these poor women working with him in the booth back there, and they'd be in tears sometimes. So I could hear something exploding, and it was Hacker's head, I think, blowing up. So I heard something going on, and then the commercial started, and Don, the anchor, who was very nice, guy, said, Gary, I think actually we were supposed to play a commercial. Then, oh, that's right, sorry. So I went back and sat down, and Dave Hacker, this big guy, really big. He actually worked as a bouncer in Chicago. And he comes out, there's steam coming out of his ears, and I'm sitting there, and I'm sorry. And he just let me have it. He really did. Right there in front of everybody. And I had a degree in broadcasting. It wasn't like I didn't know anything about broadcasting. I know that television is an illusion. That wasn't a newsflash to me, but I goofed, I blew it. And so when we came back, and after all that, he went back in and settled down and all that. And they came back, and I basically, when they came back to me, I said, something like, well, we started up, Don. I'm sorry about that false start there. I was just so excited to get up and do the weather. Get started. Yeah, so excited to get started. All right, good time to switch tape.